Hello and welcome to everyone tuning in to Scholar Trek's Room 2 presentation for FAFSA completion. This is going over how to complete the FAFSA for students and families with divorced or separated parents that are living in different households. So to start off this presentation, I really wanted to go over some of the top questions that we get as students are completing the FAFSA and really trying to understand how best to complete the FAFSA. So that first question, my parents are divorced, but we all still live in the same house. What do I do? So for that one, we actually have a different presentation, which is our Room 1 presentation, because for the FAFSA purposes, the parents are seen as married for this. They are seen as joint income information being provided for the student because both parents are in the same house. So there is a Room 1 presentation. Go ahead and go over to that one if this is your situation. For question 2, my parents are divorced and the parent I live with is remarried. Do I include my step-parents information? The answer to that is yes. Step-parent information is included if the step-parent is for the parent that you live with. My parents are divorced, and while I live with one parent full-time, my other parent is our only source of financial support. What do I do then? For this, we're going to default to the FAFSA hierarchy chart, if you will. And so the FAFSA starts with when we're trying to decide whose income to include or which parent to complete the FAFSA with in the situations where we're only utilizing one parent's information. It defaults to the parent that you live with most of the time, who physically has the student most of the time. And so while the other parent is your only source of financial support, we still would use just your parent that you live with. Information, their tax return would be utilized to determine FAFSA support. My parents have 50-50 shared legal custody and switch who files me on their taxes each year. So for this one, we would still go back to the kind of that hierarchy, and then we go to the second step, which is who provides financially for you more. So while your parents do have equal custody of you, is there a person who provides financially more? We would utilize that person's information, but it's also possible to simply utilize the information for the parent that filed you on their taxes for the year that we are using to complete the FAFSA. For the FAFSA, we utilize prior year taxes. And so, for example, now we're completing the 2023-2024 school year FAFSA and utilizing the taxes from 2021. You could utilize those the parent who completed those taxes. And then that last question, the person I live with now is not the person who included me on their taxes. What do I do? So this is where a conversation definitely is in order. Technically, the FAFSA would automatically say to simply utilize the person's information that you do live with, but it is possible that you'll be selected for additional documentation, which is called verification, because it's going to seem like the information doesn't match up. So it really just depends on what the family thinks is best. To the FAFSA hierarchy, we would go to the parent that you live with, but it is also possible to utilize that switching of the taxes and utilizing that parent as well. So we're going to complete the FAFSA form. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to go through different slides on how to complete the FAFSA form, and we're going to be using this I'm a parent and filling out a FAFSA form for a student. So here, we're going to start the FAFSA and include the student's personal information. And as we go through the FAFSA, there's going to be a lot of information asking of your name, your social security number. And throughout the entire FAFSA form, unless otherwise noted, that's always going to be talking about the student. So even though we're doing it from a parent's point of view of completing the FAFSA, we're still going to be submitting all the information for the student. So we don't want to get caught up in that. We don't want to get in trouble there. So starting off here, to get connected to the student's profile, we're going to put in their first name, last name, date of birth, and social security number. So here's a little example for our girl Helen last name, whose birthday is April 19, 2004. And we also entered her social security number. So let's get started. Welcome to Helen's application. So it's asking which school year. So for this presentation, Helen is a senior. She's the class of 2023, and she's going straight to college after graduation. So we're going to be completing that 2023-2024 FAFSA. For the purposes of this presentation, Helen is going to college in August. She's not starting in June. She's not doing a May semester starting automatically. So we're going to be doing that 2023-2024 FAFSA. So first, we're going to do that save key, and that is just going to allow us to access the FAFSA form at a later date and time if we've got to come back. We've got that save key, this password that'll let us re-enter where we left off. So here we go. Let's get started completing the FAFSA. I highly recommend looking through those resources and getting that and all the information that you feel like you need by expanding all these questions and reading more about them. So here we're getting started off with that personal information for student, your social security number. And that's where I wanted to make sure nobody got tripped up. Parents, please don't include your social security number, your first name, middle initial, last name, or date of birth. It's all about the student. And here again, we're going to need the student's email and phone number, not the parent's email and phone number, the student. Please make sure that we're including the accurate information. Student's mailing address and information, and then student residency. So has the student lived in Georgia for at least 5 years? Yes or no? And is the student a U.S. citizen? Yes, no, but I'm an eligible non-citizen. No, I am not a citizen or eligible non-citizen. One of those three options. Student education. What will your highest school completion status be when you begin college in 2023, 2024? So that's going to be high school diploma, or for students that earn their GED, it'll be getting their GED. What college degree? It's going to be that first bachelor's. They will not have their first bachelor's. They, even if they did dual enrollment, it's still going to be that first year of college. And if you'd like to be considered for work study, which is essentially getting money in your federal financial aid package that can help you pay your bill, it just gets you money to pay your bill at school, essentially. Yes or no, or don't know. Student's driver's license information, if they do have one, and state. And then foster care and parent education. Answering for the student, has the student ever been in foster care at any point in time? Yes or no? And then highest level of school completed for the parent. If you don't know, if you're not sure, just put other unknown. So here we're selecting, again, for the student, the high school that they attend. So for Helen goes to Westlake here in Atlanta. So we're going to search for Westlake and then select Westlake there at the bottom. And then here we're confirming it's Westlake High School in Atlanta, Georgia. So now we're starting the college search process. So for the FAFSA, when you're first completing it, you can put up to 10 institutions that you're interested in wanting to have your financial aid information. You can only do 10 at a time, but later on down the line, it is possible to remove one school and add another, or remove all 10 and add 10 more. So for here, you can search by the school's name, city, and state, or by the school's federal code. For here, we're just going to do the name, and we're using Merville College in Merville, Tennessee. And we're selecting that institution, doing the check mark, and pressing continue. And it's asking us for Merville, are you going to be living on campus, with a parent, or off campus? And that's just to help them understand the financial aid information that you're going to need. Will you need housing information or not? And so then the student's marital status, single, married, remarried, separated, divorced, or widowed. And this is just helping us figure out if the student is a dependent or an independent student. Does the student have any dependents? Do they have any children who receive more than half of their support directly from the student? Or do they have anyone else that relies on them for more than half of their support? And then we've got a checklist here. And again, this is really just trying to see, is this a dependent student or an independent student? So are you able to check any of these options that would lead to you being seen potentially as an independent student and not utilizing your parents' information. If none of this applies to you, then you do none of the above. Student homelessness, ensuring that we understand where students are and have the access to resources that we can provide. Were you homeless or self-supporting at risk of being homeless after July 1st, 2022? Yes or no? So based on the answers that we provided, FAFSA has determined that we are a dependent student, which means that we have to provide parental information. There is a note here that if there is a special circumstance where the FAFSA says that you are a dependent student, but you cannot provide financial information, you will be able to submit the FAFSA, but you will have to go through multiple steps in order to hopefully receive some federal funding here. So for this example, we're going to provide parental information. And so going back what I said earlier about that FAFSA hierarchy, for this, we're looking at those divorced or separated, and I live with one parent more than the other. It says report information about the parent you lived with more in the last 12 months in the parent information and parent demographic section. If that parent is remarried, report information for his or her spouse as well. So that goes to that step parent question as well. And then my parents are divorced or separated, and I live with both parents equally, then we defer to who provided you more financial support over the past 12 months, and then including the information for their spouse if that parent is remarried. So as of today, when you're completing the FAFSA, what is the marital status of your parents? And for this, they are divorced or separated. And when did they become divorced or separated? October 2021. So whose information will you be providing for the FAFSA? And we're including the mother's information. So here we're including the mother's social security number. And again, it says your mother's, but it's the student's mother, obviously. So don't include grandma's information. It's mom's information for social security number, last name, first initial, date of birth. And here is where we get that parent email information, not earlier. Parent state of legal residence. Has your mother lived in Georgia for at least 5 years? Yes or no? And let's talk about dependents. So who else is in the house that relies on the mom for more than half of their financial support? And so in this scenario, we are a family of 5. We've got mom, me, and 3 other siblings. So 3 other children, but no other dependents that receive more than half of their support. So household size of 5. You, your mom, and 3 other children. And so how many of that 4 dependents that were provided, how many are in college? For some, this will be 1. For some, could be all 4. You just put that number in there, and that just is providing that information so the institutions that you're interested in can get a very clear picture of the financial landscape of your family. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, the FAFSA uses prior year tax information. So for the 2023-2024 FAFSA, we're using 2021 tax information. So this checklist is going to see if we can utilize the FAFSA IRS data retrieval tool, which is the easiest way to complete this financial portion of the FAFSA. But for this scenario, we really wanted to show what it was like if you weren't able to utilize that information. And the reason for that in this example is that if you filed jointly, but you are now divorced, you cannot use that joint return or the IRS data retrieval tool for that joint return. So we're going to have to fill out the information individually. And so if we were able to utilize the IRS data retrieval tool, then it would look like this. We would utilize the FAFSA, the FSA ID credentials to bring that information into the FAFSA. But so we can't, so let's fill it out. So it's going to tell you where on your tax return to find the information to include in each of the questions that it's asking you. So your adjusted gross income, which is line 11 on your IRS form 1040. Your wages, line 1, schedule 1, lines 3 plus 6, all that information, putting it there. Income tax information here. Going through and putting any additional funding here, just going through any education credits, pension, deductions, exempt interest income, child support, cooperative education program earnings, or taxable earnings from federal work study, anything like that. And then untaxed income, again, child support, food, living, housing allowances, anything like that for military, clergy, all of these, veteran non-education benefits, just any untaxed income. Going through your assets, what is the total current balance of cash savings and checking accounts? What is the net worth, including real estate, but not your home? And also any businesses that are not a family farm or business with 100 or less full-time employees. So then the students filing. So for the 2021 return, has a student completed one? For most students, it's going to be not going to file, but some students do complete their own taxes, but not going to file. And so student income from work, again, that child support information, cooperative education program, federal work study, child support, housing, food, other allowances, any additional untaxed incomes here, student asset information here, and here we are almost at the end of completing the FAFSA. We are here at the summary page, and we're going to go through the FAFSA with a fine-tooth comb and ensure that everything that we filled out is correct. Our social security number is correct, our email, our phone number, address, the school we want to get our information, the financial information we put on the FAFSA. We're just going to confirm that everything here is correct, it's right, and we are done with completing it. So before we proceed, we're going to certify that the information that we provided is accurate and that we're utilizing the FSA ID to sign our application. So we're going to enter the FSA ID information to sign this. Let's say that you are unable to sign. There are other options to sign, including a signature page where you can do a wet signature for the FAFSA. So here are some helpful links to complete the FAFSA. We've got the FAFSA toolkit, the link to create that FSA ID, which is you're going to need throughout this process, the dependent checklist to see if you're dependent or independent, and then also some videos like this one about completing the FAFSA, but also completing the CSS profile for scholarships. So this has been Ludine from ScholarTrek. I'm so glad that you guys were able to watch this presentation, but if you've got any questions, I am here as a resource to help, and you can email me or text me at any point in time. You can also go to our ScholarTrek website to find more resources and also find where we'll be around the world. Thank you.